So for our physics project, we are talking about different types of energy, and like what are the political impacts, and what are the economical impacts, and what are the social impacts, and what are the disadvantages. So I would be going to wind turbines, and my other teammates are talking about solar and nuclear energy. This is a wind turbine. Those three propellers spin around and they generate electricity. So the social impacts are that people would be going away from burning fossil fuels, so they would be less exposed to hazardous waste and emissions. And the political impacts are that they use it as a strategy to get more votes. And the economical impacts are that it's like a new job and new source revenue for farmers. And the disadvantages is that it costs way too much, like we're talking about 2 to 4 million. Okay, now on to nuclear energy.
Hi everyone, I'm going to be talking about nuclear energy. To produce nuclear energy, you can use two types of reaction, nuclear fission or nuclear fusion. In nuclear fission, a neutron is fired through the nucleus of one large atom. So the large atom splits into two smaller atoms, and this releases a lot of energy. In nuclear fusion, two smaller atoms are joined together to make one large atom, and this also releases a lot of energy. The energy released can be used to boil water, which boils into steam. The steam can then turn a turbine. The turbine is connected to a generator, and the generator produces electricity, which travels to our houses. But like many other types of energy, nuclear energy also has pros and cons. There's economical impacts, so uranium is very common, but a tiny amount of uranium is found in rocks. So to gain 1 kg of uranium, you need to break 1 ton of rock, and that's really expensive. And also, as more and more uranium-235 is getting used, less and less is available. So it's getting more expensive, and many companies are closing down because it's so expensive. There's political impact of using nuclear energy. So nuclear power plants are needed to make nuclear weapons, which can kill many people, as you know, like in Hiroshima or Nagasaki. But it's really hard to distinguish nuclear power plants that produce nuclear electricity to nuclear power plants that produce nuclear weapons. So a country might just suddenly declare war because they've been secretly preparing weapons all this time. And there's also social impacts. So, as you know, used nuclear elements are very radioactive, and radioactive materials can kill you and your cells and your DNA. And Chernobyl, it's one of the famous examples of this. The area around Chernobyl, the factory where Chernobyl happened, it's still very radioactive, and people can't live there anymore because it's so radioactive. But the organisms there, like snails and those tiny animals that live there, they still have mutation because of the radioactivity. And you can't. Are 10% of our world's energy supplies with another Chernobyl or Fukushima? That's a question worth asking. And lastly, there's environmental impacts. So use radioactive materials like uranium-235 or plutonium. People don't know where to put them because they're radioactive. Before, we used to dump them into the oceans, which is obviously really bad for sea creatures, and also us because we eat fish. And biomagnification happens, so we get more toxicity and many people die because of radioactivity. So we're not allowed to do that anymore, dump into the ocean, we can't do that. So people don't know where to put these radioactive materials, these used elements. So many people just have them lying around or in landfill sites. But sometimes it can just leak into the environment, like in the soil or water, and it's never safe. And only one country is concerned about where to put the nuclear elements, and that's tiny Finland. Although there are many disadvantages, there are also many advantages of nuclear energy. Like nuclear energy is responsible for saving 1.8 million people. This is because nuclear energy doesn't really produce CO2 or other greenhouse gases, which can stop asthma, accidents, pollution, and many other types of this. And also, to produce 83 trillion tons of energy, 1 kg of uranium can produce 83 trillion joules of energy. And to produce the same amount of energy, you would need to burn 10,000 tons of coal. And that's a lot of coal, of course, but imagine how much CO2 it would produce.
So I will be talking about solar power. So this is a solar panel. So how does it work, you may ask? Solar panels work by converting light from the sun into electricity. This is done by installing solar panels on your roof, which generate DC, which basically means direct current electricity. This is then fed into a solar inverter, which converts the DC electricity from your solar panels into AC electricity, which means alternating current electricity. It usually helps get extra natural energy that can be converted into electricity. Economic impacts are solar panels and solar power collecting devices are usually very good for the long run since they are very expensive. But if you buy a lot, it will pay off much quicker and you will make some extra money. Political impacts are that it improves the infrastructure and helps double and even sometimes triple the country's treasury. Social impacts are that people would usually want to get solar panels for the long run because they cost a lot, but in the end it pays off.